So why would people publish junk like that? Right? If there are any art directors in the audience, I'm sorry, I apologize. It's hard looking at these to see much of a revolution, right? But that's because, for those of us of a certain age, we're just not used to what's going on. Right? We're not used to seeing things that are in public, but not for the public. It used to be that making something public took effort. And if you did it, you were implicitly putting it out for everyone. The question is now switched because the cost has fallen to the point where the question is not why publish this, but why not publish this? These people aren't actually publishing. Right? They're having a conversation, and they're not talking to you. Right? If you come by and are looking in, that's kind of your choice. But this stuff is really up there to amuse their friends. Right? This is the big change with the intersection of broadcast and communications media. Right? We used to be able to tell one kind of message from another because it came in on one kind of device or the other. Well, that came in over the TV, whereas this came in over the phone. Somebody who says, I love you on the TV, and somebody who says, I love you on the phone, I have no problem disambiguating those messages. But it all comes in over the network. And as a result, what was previously a separation between these two patterns is now instead a spectrum. So, the critical thing for people thinking about the media landscape, do not fall for the myth of quality. Right? You will hear people selling it all the time. Oh, well, eventually, right? Eventually the web will get as good as TV. Right? We're still waiting for that day. Right? Eventually people will tire of this sort of thing, and they'll move up to high production values, and we'll go back to the world we knew. Right? We're in some sort of disrupted interregnum now, but eventually, right, people are going to demand high quality content. This stuff isn't up here because these people care about high production values. This stuff is up there because this guy is my friend. I mean, not actually this guy, but I mean, you get the, right? He's one's my friend. Right? Media doesn't have quality. It has qualities, right? You know, one of the interesting qualities media can have is my friends are in it, right? But we've been in a world where that quality has been completely separated from all the high production value worked over to a fine, buffed finish kind of stuff. Right? So it's either Polaroids of somebody's vacation, or it's a 30-second spot that millions have gone into. Right? Those things are now in competition with one another for the simple reason that they're on the same network. And I can click from one to the other. We are never again going back to a world in which production value as a single denominator of quality is going to determine the success of media in this environment. These are trivial examples. But in a way, that's kind of the point, right? The act of publishing, which used to be momentous, simply isn't anymore, right? The value has to come from somewhere else. And a lot of the value is coming now from shared human interest. Another apology to the art directors in the audience. This little bit of orange on black web design circa 1996. Hard to read in this light, I apologize. I was not the graphic designer. This is from Bronze Beta. This is a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan site. And it's for people to get together to talk about Buffy and all things related. And this would be a relatively unremarkable, if somewhat unattractively designed fan site, except for two interesting things. The first is that when Warner Brothers was selling the original site called Bronze to UPN, UPN said, oh, you know, we're not in the community business, we're just in the content business. We're happy to buy the TV show, but we don't have any place to host these people. So they went and said, okay, closing time, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, we're shutting this server down. And there was some vague promise about a future server that they could come back to. But as with the point made earlier about the loyalty programs, right, the discontinuity of shutting this server down and not giving these people any place to go would destroy the community. You couldn't just start it back up. So these people raised their own money. And they went and they hired programmers to give them a new place to go. And when they went to those programmers and they were telling them what they wanted, they said, for God's sake, whatever you do, don't give it any features. Right? We don't want rating, We don't want ranking. We don't want threaded conversation. We don't want favorites. We don't want any of that stuff. All we want is a little form where when you type into it and hit submit, that shows up on a web page. Again, rendered as if you had a very long, skinny browser. This is what the site looks like today. That is that. And that's it. It is a huge, long, scrolling, reverse chronological accumulation of text. This isn't the discussion section of the Buffy site. This is the site. That's all there is. This form, right? Password is optional, right? You could go in and post anything there now. Right? Social software. It's the only software I know of in the history of software developed for modern computers, which is to say roughly 1960 on, where the later products have fewer features than the earlier products. If you'd gone back to 1998 and you'd looked around at the high-end content management systems like Vignette and Interwoven, and then you'd swung by Pyra Labs in San Francisco and you'd pointed to this thing called Blogger, and you'd say, 10 years from now, much more content is going to be published using that thing than these fancy enterprise-class content management tools? No one would have believed it. But that is exactly what came to pass. And here's why I think that is. It's the difference between thinking of the computer as a box and thinking of it as a door. If you think of the computer as a box, you want as many toys in your box as you can get, right? You want Photoshop with all the toolbars turned on, so you can only edit images this size. You want Microsoft Word, which is completely customizable. You want Excel, macros. It doesn't matter if you use those things in a different way than I use them, right? More toys is better, right? The minute the computer's a door, the minute it's something that you go through to get to people on the other side, nobody wants a door with a lot of different kinds of handles. You want it to be simplicity itself, because the really important thing the software is doing is it's synchronizing the minds of the users. Right? Twitter, when it launched, had 2 features. Right? Feature creep, now I think it's up to 6. Right? So this is the simplest possible substrate for this community, and yet, like a hermit crab commissioning its own shell, these people knew exactly what they wanted. But here's another funny page on the site, and again, rendered long. You can see here just the bullet points all the way down. That's the list of rules. Right? This thing launched with about 3 features, but about 30 rules. Right? Much more time and effort was spent coordinating the human attention that went around the site than providing any features for the tools. Again, echoing, it's not about the technology, it's about the humanity. Right? The most important environment for Bronze Beta is actually the minds of the users and not the software they commissioned. Getting the social bargain right was a much bigger and harder part of the ongoing success of this community. And I mean ongoing success, right? Those screenshots, those are from 2 weeks ago, right? They have long outlived the death of Buffy. They've stayed together for each other. And this is one of the things that's hard to explain to people, which is that certain kinds of products can create communal value that outlast the product, or where the product is the catalyst, but not the cause. Right? These are people who know each other so well that they exchange birthday greetings on the site. Is that valuable for Buffy and for the sort of aura around Buffy? Yes, absolutely. But it's not the sort of thing that you can think of as I'm connecting the dots from point A to point B to point C.